I want to jump to this story we got from the Daily Mail. Poland starts handing out anti-radiation tablets as battle rages around Ukraine nuclear power plant. Oh, I don't think it's the nuclear power plant, but they do mention Putin's fresh nuke threat. So I believe this is potassium iodide. Yep, potassium iodide tablets. Okay. First, as a PSA to everybody to explain what this is, it's basically iodine. What happens? You eat it. It goes into your thyroid. When your body absorbs as much as it can, it will reject the rest. If radioactive iodine is in the air or on the ground or all over the place and you're eating, your body will absorb it and put radioactive iodine in your thyroid, which then causes problems. This does not protect you from anything else. People seem to think that, like, if there's a nuclear bomb that goes off, you take one of these and it protects you from the radiation. Like, it protects your thyroid from iodine. But I don't know exactly what kind of radioactive materials are going to be littered all over the place. But I do want to talk to everybody about the threat of nuclear war and what it really means. And I'll bring up a good story. Luke and I, we went to Fukushima, and they told us we didn't take potassium iodide when we went, did we?
I don't think so. No.
But they gave us suits.
Yep.
And the suits were just cloth suits. And I was kind of like, don't you have to have like some kind of special material? And they're like, no. What the suits do is when the dust and the particles land on you, when you leave, you take it all off so it's not on you, and then you take a shower to wash it all off. And I was like, oh, okay. I thought it was like for like radiation, and they were like alpha and beta particles. They stick to you. You then eat stuff. It gets in your system. But with Fukushima, there was MOX plutonium, and there was iodine 131 or something like that. The MOX plutonium was a heavy metal lit on the ground. It sinks. It drops. The iodine kicks up. So you take one of these pills, but then you pick something up off the ground and you can get some, MOX plutonium or whatever it's called on you. That ain't doing anything for you. So in the event of nuclear war, the other thing to consider, not every nuclear bomb has a radioactive yield. That's my understanding is that's intentional. When a bomb goes off and it leaves radiation, like they design it to do that. And there are many nuclear bombs that actually don't. They just do fireballs. So
yeah, our understanding of nuclear weapons is still primitive compared to the advancements that were made within what was it, like 90 years, 80 years since the
80.
last? Yeah, 80 years.
About 80 years.
So what we know of the nuclear weapon 80 years ago is absolutely nothing compared to what's out there right now, and the technology and the possibilities that they have. Putin and the Russian government a lot of times talk about flooding all of the United Kingdom with a radiation wave and using nuclear weapons under water as a way to start a tsunami that is going to cover all of the United Kingdom. This is what they talk about. They even made graphics. They even made a cartoon about this on Russian state television, which is just absolutely perplexing and insane.
I got a question. Why would Russia not have rods from God? Why would they not have that? Why would the U.S. not have that? For those who aren't familiar, it's a theoretical weapon where you put a series of tungsten rods in a satellite and it drops them, and the force of gravity, it's like, like 100 times more powerful than a nuke of the same size or something?
Yeah.
Some ridiculous, massive explosive yield.
They might. Who knows? I don't know. I'm not familiar enough with where that technology is.
Here's my point. It's not so much about where the technology is. It's that no one even knew they were building nukes in the first place.
Yeah.
So there was speculation about this big project that was going on. Some thought that it could be a nuclear weapon. Some thought it was going to be a death ray. Some thought it was teleportation or time travel. People believed crazy things. And then lo and behold, it turned out to be this massive explosive device.
Yeah, at the Manhattan Project that was spearheaded and started at the Bohemian Grove, of all places, where 100,000 people were working on it, and only about 24 knew exactly what they were working on.
Right. I mean, that said, I don't know. I read. Have you read The Making of the Atomic Bomb by Richard Rhodes?
No, I have not.
Very, very great book, by the way.
But I was looking into the Bohemian Grove, and then they were just bragging, oh, the nuclear bomb was pretty much created here. And I'm like...
Kind of. I mean, my understanding based on that book was that there were a series of experiments done and publicized in like 1939, 1940 in Germany, of all places.
Yep.
Where basically I think they split the uranium atom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right? So... Actually, I pulled up the Wikipedia discovery of nuclear fission by German chemists.
Look at that, 1938. How right am I? Am I right? Am I right?
Yep. And then Germany could have developed the nuclear weapon, but they kicked out their scientists because they had a religion that they didn't like.
Kicked out,
and all the scientists went to the United States, and they started building it here in the United States.
Literally, the Nazis' anti-Semitism is actually a pretty good argument that. Maybe it's not exactly why they lost World War II, but it made their loss inevitable.
I mean, if Hitler had the nuclear bomb before anybody else,
it would be game over. On the V2
it
rocket
would be game over.
Instead,
and They had rockets.
Yeah, they wanted to.
They were working on saucers as well. Like the development of German technology in the early parts of that World War were absolutely just beyond belief.
You want to continue with what you were saying, that 1940?
Oh, yeah. So basically, but like once this experiment happened, and there were scientists around the world having seen this experiment, understood the implication was a nuclear bomb is possible, and so. That's, so Germany started working on it. We started working on it. I think England, other countries started working on it too. So it wasn't I guess it wasn't a secret at that point. It was sort of, if you were in the scientific community, it was like all the scientists started talking to the politicians of like, we know this is possible. You should really invest in this because you don't want the other guy to get this first. Because it's just how much energy was necessarily created from splitting the uranium atom was enough to make people realize that it could create a chain reaction in a bomb.
And I would even argue, Germany lost World War II, but I would say the Nazis didn't.
How so? I mean, you mean because Werner von Braun came to us or something?
One, a lot of them went to Argentina. Two, the Russians and the Americans scooped them up right after the war and then had them work on NASA, had them work on the Russian space agency.
What was that? Was that Paperclip?
Yeah, that was one of the
Operation
programs.
Paperclip. And the death of Hitler is still being contested by many historians. There was no body as well. So he could have been in Argentina this whole time. Argentina gave them safe haven.
Well, look, they did lose.
That doesn't mean that's not winning.
Their influence escaped.
I'm making a very nuanced kind of argument here. I'm saying that the ideology was passed on through a lot of the top figures being saved through Operation Paperclip.
I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't call Werner von Braun like a top Nazi. I mean, he was a member of the Nazi Party, but he was a rocket scientist, right?
Yes.
Like, and that was, he was a rocket scientist in Germany. Not saying he wasn't a bad guy or a good guy. I'm just saying like he wasn't Goebbels, some ideologist who's spreading it. Yeah. And then you look at people like Eichmann, is the classic guy who went to Argentina. I mean, he had to be incognito for 20 years before the Israelis finally found him, kidnapped him, and tried him in Israel.
Not to mention, there's a bunch of really crazy stories, like the was it the Istal Woman? I think it was called. I went to this is an amazing story. I went to Bergen, Norway, a while back. Mm-hmm. And there's this legend they have where they found a woman dead up in the mountain just outside of town from smoke inhalation, they said. And it's been a long time since I've gone through the story. We interviewed a bunch of people in Bergen. And there were like passports, outfits. And so one of the leading theories was that she was Mossad hunting down escaped Nazis in various countries. And they were being summarily executed, so not escaping. But in this instance, this woman was killed by the person she was sent to assassinate. And so they found her body, didn't know who she was, saw a bunch of aliases and passports, never figured it out. But people are like, they believe that Mossad went on for decades, probably even still now, are hunting these people down. There was a story not that long ago of like a guy who was like 90-something years old. Was it like 98?
Yeah, I heard of that.
And he was like a Nazi guard and they found him.
They arrested him, didn't they?
Yeah, I think they deported him. I think was he in
there was a Netflix movie about that, I think. It was like some...
But here's what people don't know. Here's what people don't understand is that many of these people who did escape probably died within a year from assassinations, and it's not in the news. It's not going to be in the history books.
A lot of prominent people are connected to that history, whether it's Soros, Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Canadian, the minister lady. I forgot her name right now, but she also has ties to a lot of that darker kind of history. But this is something that my people have kind of lived through. Being from Poland, we hear about this all the time. This is something that my family lost a lot of its members to. And it's still something that, I think in hindsight should be talked about more, especially with the severe escalations we're seeing in Europe right now that many people believe is going to prompt another world war, which is just absolutely insane.
Yeah, Nazism wasn't stopped. The German Third Reich was stopped, but Nazism wasn't. It was in eastern Ukraine. It still is. They call them the Azov now, the Azov Battalion. It's like a neo-Nazi group.
Wasn't there a picture of a guy standing with Zelensky that had like the Black Sun logo or something?
Yep.
It is genuinely true that the Zelensky government is way too friendly with straight up like anti-Semites. Yeah. And I mean, they were roundly, they named one of their major streets after a guy named Stepan Bandera.
Yeah.
Who was involved in pogroms against the Jewish community in advance of the Germans coming in. And they're, all these guys they're hailing as like Ukrainian heroes and Ukrainian nationalists. Well, those are the guys who like fought the Russians and sided with the Nazis, and usually were doing the Nazis' bidding before the Nazis showed up.
Well, Ukraine is also in a tough position because that's some of the best fighters that they have. And
Yeah.
the Ukrainian government is like, okay, let's stop talking about this because we need to fight a war, and this is how they're kind of excusing it. But there's a whole, I think, a battalion inside of the official Ukrainian military that was officially recognized that did have extreme far right kind of ideas, and there's no denying that. It's something that, of course, the Russians kind of bring up all the time. But this is a battalion, and a lot of the stuff gets contested here. But you're not wrong, Ian.
It's the Azov Regiment, formed from volunteers integrated into the National Guard of Ukraine. At least this is what I've been told. Is Azov? The Azov are the neo-Nazis. That's the symbol. Is like, it's basically a swastika at an angle, not a complete swastika, but it's got, I don't know if you put. Yeah, there it is. That blue symbol on the right. I don't know. This is what I hear. This is propaganda, but I can't imagine being in the United States and hearing propaganda that our supposed allies are Nazis.
It's not merely propaganda. Like that, there's real truth to that. I mean, you can look into, Jewish associations lighting up the Ukrainian government for their actions in support of Azov, and a lot of their public resurrection of these World War II figures who were anti-Semitic.
Another problem with war is pushing countries to war is that the worst, I'm not saying that the Azov are the worst, but violent extremists will rise up to fight because those might be your best fighters because they're violent extremists. That's what they do, is they know how to fight.
This weird problem for Ukrainian nationalism in general, right? Because Ukraine doesn't have this long and deep history as an independent nation, so they're kind of have to reach for these figures of nationalist pride in Ukraine who have these very, very checkered pasts.
I'd love to see Ukraine become a neutral territory in some way, like Switzerland. Like it's in a position where it should be. It's like the cerebral cortex. It should have been a buffer
state. It should have been a buffer state. That would have been much better for everybody. Right, much better for
it's flat,
the West,
so it's not
Ukraine,
it's too
or like
easy
a Hong Kong, or like a Singapore. But Ukraine also has a lot of natural gas, and a lot of energy exploration is being found in that country, which threatens the Russian petrostate. And this is, I think, another reason why Russia is being so aggressive, especially in the southern parts, where a lot of this new energy has been found, and will contest Russia as a petrostate and contend with it directly, which of course Russia can't have because that's one of its major assets is its energy that it provides the world.
Oil,
gas, oil, energy. Yep. So yeah, complex situation, very confusing. Lots of different sides, lots of different atrocities. No one wins in war, and please, my goodness, let's try to call for some de-escalations here and stop with this madness and people dying for the whims of politicians and their aspirations.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.